Now, I decided to become a spiritual leader and talk about spiritual leadership from the time I was baptized. When I was a brigade level commander, and that's about 5,000 folks, trying to be a spiritual leader, I hosted Bible studies with my officers with the motto, work hard, pray hard. Work hard, pray hard. I was seeking for a acknowledged speaker to come talk to my leaders in the brigade. And, sir, I came across this gentleman that you probably know well named Tom Landry. And we reached out to Tom Landry and said, sir, here's the situation. I lead an organization of about 5,000 people, and we're going to host a spiritual fitness luncheon. Can you please come be our speaker? And Tom said, I'll be there. I'll be there. And he came. And 500 people came into the lunchroom to hear Landry the coach, and they heard Landry the Christian. And what he said is, being a Christian is not about who you are, it's about what you do. Christians lead people to Christ. He gave people the marching order. It's not just about being a Christian. He told us becoming a Christian was easy. Being a Christian was hard. And he launched us on this path to be an active Christian. And I took those words to heart and continued to think about at all levels, what could we do to lead people to Christ? And now, what can we do as Christians to fix this mess that we're in? So when Sarah and I transitioned from the military, and I use the word transition, I never used the word retire. When I transitioned from 35 years in the Army, we committed the rest of our life to the service of others. My favorite book is a book entitled The Life God Rewards by a gentleman named Bruce Wilkinson. And in it, the author says, God really doesn't care how many stars you wore or how much money you made. He cares about how many people you touch. How many people you touch. So we decided to do a variety of things. We do a lot of pro bono work for our wounded warriors. You know, we have 50,000 youngsters with visible wounds from the global war on terrorism. We have another 150,000 with invisible wounds. We have a couple thousand with amputations. So we spend a lot of time helping our wounded warriors. And I hope, candidly, that you do as well. I do run a research institute there in Fort Worth, focused on advanced technology to help humanity. How do we find affordable solutions to complex problems to use the gift that God has given me with my talents with advanced technology? And then we decided to share our views on leadership. And I did write a book entitled Adapt or Die, The Leadership Principles of an American General. Candidly, I don't like the title. In the book business, generally the publisher decides on the title. But it's about adaptive leadership. How can you indeed work your way through changing circumstances and still make a difference? How many out there are leaders? Raise your hand if you're a leader. See, that's one of the problems that we have, candidly, is people don't acknowledge the fact that they're a leader. Everybody is a leader. You're a leader in your family, you're a leader in your church, you're a leader in your community, you're a leader in legislature, whatever it might be, but everybody's a leader, and you have to acknowledge the importance of being a strong, effective leader. And in our world, a strong, demonstrated Christian leader. You know, one of the things I found frustrating over the last couple of decades is coming across individuals who were closet Christians. Closet Christians. You know, they kept their faith to themselves. They didn't talk about it. And when I asked them, you know, why is that? Why is it that you don't want to profess your faith? There's always two reasons. One is, hey, I sin. Well, it tells us in the book of Romans, we all sin and fall short of the glory of God. So you can't use that as excuse. You know, in the book of Colossians, rules for holy living, and candidly, I make mistakes all the time. Paul tells us in the book of Romans, why do I do what I know I shouldn't do? God understands that. He expects you to confess your sins, ask for forgiveness, and do better the next day. So if you happen to be a closet Christian because you're a sinner and you don't want to be a hypocrite, that's where we all are. So just know, we all sin and fall short of the glory of God. And the second thing people say is, I can't profess my faith because I don't know the word of the Lord that well. Well, here's an idea. Study it. Like Joshua 1:8 says, do not let this book of the law depart from your mouth. Meditate it on it day and night so you can be careful to do everything written in it, and then you'll be prosperous and successful. Or 2 Timothy 3:16. All Scripture is God-breathed and is used for teaching and coaching and correcting and rebuking and training in righteousness. So if you find yourself in a situation where you are hesitant to profess your views, candidly, I think you got to fix that. I think you got to come out of the closet and be a demonstrated public Christian. And don't fall short of the mark because you sin, because we all do, or because you might not know the Bible very well. Just study the Bible and continue to be active and aggressive. So if we're going to be Christian leaders and we're going to help govern God's way and fix this problem that we as a nation have, what I try to do in my book is highlight 9 leadership principles. And when people read the book, they're thinking that they got this guy who was in the Army for 35 years and 4 years at West Point, commanded at all levels, and what he's going to do is convince all that time in the 9 leadership principles, and that's true. But when they read the book, they realize that the prominent theme in the book is faith and family. Because I cite in the book those circumstances. Without my personal relationship with God, I would have been devastated. And you would imagine over the course of a military career, there are a lot of difficult circumstances, and I'll share some of those with you just to make a point. But the 3 elements of being an effective Christian leader, I believe, is attitude, engagement, and time management. So let's first talk about attitude. I mean, there are a lot of folks who walk around kicking rocks all the time and looking down and woe is me, everything is hard, and we have all these problems in our community, we have all these problems in our state, in our nation. Candidly, that's not helpful, and that attitude permeates everybody else you're around, and they become negative as well. I talk in the book, you got to concentrate on opportunities and not obstacles. Opportunities and not obstacles. So I found myself in many difficult circumstances in combat. I had about 4 years in Iraq. I led soldiers on the field of battle in Desert Shield and Desert Storm, in the Balkans, in the Cold War. So I had many circumstances, thank God, after I was baptized and I found my relationship with God, where I needed to turn to God. But he tells us, don't worry. In Joshua 1:9, he says, hey, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. So that's what we have as Christians. We have God with us all the time. And as it says in the Bible, if God is with us, who can be against us, right? So in difficult circumstances, one of the things I had to do for our nation in Iraq is negotiate with the Sunni insurgency. And on any given occasion, it was about 13 Sunni insurgents, all heavily armed, in a room with me and my translator. And people say, well, how did you do that? It was easy. I kept an empty chair next to me because that's where God was sitting, right? Because he said, do not be terrified, do not be discouraged. I'm going to be with you. And he was right there. On one horrendous day in Iraq, I went back and commanded 25,000 soldiers on the field of battle as part of the surge. The place was called the Valley of Death, and we got there 15 months later. It was the Valley of Life because of these magnificent soldiers. 153 of them died on the battlefield on the place I placed them, and I got to live with that the rest of my life. And I look at the faces of fallen on a daily basis, and I pray for them and their families. But on one particularly difficult day, I get a call saying a squad of soldiers had entered a home that had been rigged with explosives. They were called house-borne improvised explosive devices. And when the enemy saw that squad of soldiers enter that home, they detonated the house, and 5 soldiers died instantaneously. So I got in my helicopter. I flew out to the point of the tragedy, and I met with the battalion commander. What do you think we did? We dropped to our knees, and we asked God to be with us in those difficult circumstances, to give us the strength and the courage and the wisdom to do the things that needed to be done then and now. So it's about attitude. It's about a relationship with God and acknowledging that He's with you. He tells you He's going to be with you. So as you find yourself in uncomfortable or difficult circumstances, as long as you're doing what He wants us to do, you're okay. You're okay. I talk about engagement. Now, I contend that if you're a leader, you should love those entrusted to your care like you love your own children. And demonstrate that love like God tells us to demonstrate the love. It's in the book of God, the book of John. Greater love hath no man than lay down his life for his friend. And we experience that, as you know, all the time on the field of battle. So it's about loving those entrusted to your care. Demonstrated love. And oh, by the way, if you're a leader, whether you're a leader in your family, your church, your community, it's got to be demonstrated love. And sir, you mentioned one of my favorite scriptures, Matthew 5:16. In the same way, let your light shine before men, so they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven. It's demonstrated love. It's demonstrated commitment. It's lifestyle evangelism. Joe Miller, early in my walk, when he was trying to give me an idea how to lead people to Christ, he says, you can't be a green-toothed Christian. You can't be the person who simply says, do this. You have to be a person that demonstrates what to do. Let your light shine before men so they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven. And the last major category of leadership principles that I talk about in my book with the focus on faith and family is time management. How are you spending your time? You know, candidly, a lot of times Christians become ineffective because they get so wrapped around the axle, the day-to-day stuff, that they don't pause and reflect on what's important. They don't take time to walk with the Lord in prayer. They don't take time to share their faith. They're just too damn busy. And I don't know how you do your walk. But what I do is I start every day in prayer, and I use the daily bread to guide my study that morning. And I'm convinced that pages are blank, and God just fills them in that day based on what you need that day. I'm convinced of that. So today, I don't know if any of you have the daily bread as your way to walk with the Lord, but today it was about Martha and Mary in the town of Bethany. So here's Jesus walking around. He goes into Bethany. He's going to go to Martha's house. And Martha's sister is Mary. So Martha, even though Jesus was there at the house, she got so busy doing things, she wasn't focused on Jesus. But Mary, she just sat down at his feet and listened to every word he said. So as Christian leaders, we got to think about that. How are we spending our time? How are we demonstrating what we're doing day to day? And I'm sure you've heard the story about walnuts and rice. But I enjoy telling the story so much, please pardon me, because I'm going to tell it again, because a lot of the audience I talk to, they look at me like, what in the world is he talking about now? You got a choice in life on how you're going to spend your time. So use the walnuts and rice analogy. Has anybody not heard the analogy? Is there any one person that I have not heard it? You got a choice in life. So let's use a vase and walnuts and rice as the analogy. If you got a task to fill that vase up with walnuts and rice, you got a choice. You can put the rice in first, and then the walnuts won't fit. Or you can put in a couple of walnuts, sprinkle in a little bit of rice, put in a couple more walnuts, sprinkle a little bit of rice, and before you know it, it all fit. You got all the rice in, and you got all the walnuts in. As long as you got the word of the Lord in there as well. So the analogy is the walnuts are what's important to you. And the rice are those things you got to do day to day just to survive. I mean, there are things that we have to do just to survive. We all have bills. We all have requirements. Those things have to be done. But are you indeed focused on the walnuts first? My relationship with my God is a walnut. Making time for God routinely, daily, is a walnut. And you got to think about that, how you're spending your time. And oh, by the way, I worry about those folks as a leader, as a Christian leader, those folks who say, well, here's the deal, General. I'm just going to work real hard today, and I'll play hard tomorrow. I'm going to work real hard today, and those are the folks who I haven't spent time with or I haven't told them that I love. Don't worry about that, General, because I'm going to do that tomorrow. Those folks who say, hey, I'm not going to share the word of the Lord today. I'm not going to be an active Christian today, but don't worry. It's on my to-do list tomorrow. What's the problem with that concept? God never promised you tomorrow. It's in the book of James. He only promised you now. That's why it's called the present. That's all you have is now. You got to use the time that you have now to be that active Christian. Time management. And oh, by the way, you have to demonstrate that work-life balance, and then people around you will do the same thing. I mean, I saw that throughout the course of my military career. I see it now at the university. Folks that are saying, I'm just going to work hard. Look at me. I'm getting up real early in the morning. I'm going to bed real late at night. I'm not doing anything with my family. Look at me. Aren't you proud? Aren't you impressed? And I tell them, no, I'm depressed. I'm depressed. Because if you can't manage your time to put the walnuts in there, the important thing in your life in there, then you're not going to be effective. So if you get a chance to glance at the book, it's about leadership principles to be an adaptive leader with a focus on faith and family. And I'm not here to sell books. You know, Dorothy gave me the opportunity to bring books. I don't go around the world selling books. But my publisher did indeed this week, just to promote the book, cut the cost of the electronic version of the book to $3.99, and you can find it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, or most importantly, ChristianBooks.com. And my publisher is Baker Books, a Christian publishing company. So if what I'm talking about is of interest to you, you might find that you want to grab a copy of that book, either electronically or hard copy. But if not, what I'll present to you when you leave out is the Cliff Notes version. I made a card that gives you the 9 leadership principles, and you can glance at those. And I only offer that up to you to help you govern God's way, help you be a more effective leader, biblically based, help you fix this problem that we have across our culture and across our nation today. And at the end of the day, we as Christians will have run the race. We will have run the race. And we have done the best we could. And at the end of the day, God will turn to us, just like he did in the parable of talents, and say, well done, good and faithful servant. So let's just make it a pledge to take this magnificent opportunity that Dorothy has provided us to think about how we can make a difference. Now, I tell youngsters all the time, the most important piece of furniture in your house is your mirror. Go home tonight and look in the mirror and ask yourself, are you being a closet Christian? Or are you sharing your testimony and being a professed Christian? Are you using your Christianity to touch lives and make a difference? Are you truly living the life that God will reward? God bless you all. Thank you.